The cafeteria was buzzing with the usual chatter of lunchtime, trays clattering, and laughter bouncing off the walls. In the middle of it all sat a quiet girl, always keeping to herself, never drawing much attention. She wasn't the type to talk back, and she never seemed to get involved in anyone's drama. But sometimes that calmness makes people think they've found an easy target. And today, the school's loudest bully had his eyes on her. He strutted in with his group of friends, tray in hand, and that smirk that always meant trouble. Everyone knew he loved picking on people, especially the ones who stayed silent. As he walked past her table, he made a joke loud enough for everyone to hear. His friends laughed, and the girl kept her eyes down, refusing to give him the reaction he wanted. But the bully wasn't done. He balanced his tray dangerously close to her, pretending to stumble, his food ready to spill. The crowd leaned in, waiting for the embarrassing moment they thought was coming. It was a scene everyone had seen before. He would laugh, she would blush, and then he'd walk away feeling powerful. But this time, something was different. The quiet girl slowly raised her head, and there was no fear in her eyes. Instead, there was a calmness that almost felt out of place. The bully didn't notice at first. He was too busy laughing. But those who were really paying attention could sense a shift in the air, like something unexpected was about to happen. The room went still for a second, the kind of silence that comes before a storm. The bully thought he had won before the game even started. What he didn't know was that his biggest mistake was underestimating her. Most students in that cafeteria didn't really know much about her. She was always the quiet one, sitting in the corner with a book or sketchpad, never making a scene. Some whispered that she had transferred from another school, while others guessed she just liked to stay invisible. But what they didn't realize was that sometimes the people who stay silent are the ones holding back the most. Behind her calm face was a story no one had heard, and the bully was about to find out the hard way. The bully himself had a long history of causing trouble. He thrived on attention, always trying to prove he was the toughest person in the room. Whether it was tripping kids in the hallway or mocking someone's clothes, he needed an audience. And today, with his friends cheering him on, he was certain this moment would go down as another one of his victories. His tray wobbled closer, gravy and mashed potatoes threatening to land right in her lap. He grinned wider, knowing the crowd was ready to laugh. But here's what no one around him realized. The quiet girl wasn't just some shy student. Outside of school, her evenings weren't spent on video games or hanging out at the mall. She trained hard. While most people had no idea, she was skilled in self-defense, her discipline drilled into her from years of practice. The way she moved, the way she carried herself, it was all second nature, though hidden beneath her calm demeanor. That's why when her eyes lifted to meet his, there was a strength behind them that caught a few people off guard. The bully didn't notice, too lost in his own performance. But the crowd started sensing something, a shift in the mood. Something was about to happen, and it wouldn't be the embarrassment he had planned. The tray tilted closer, and for a split second, everyone braced for the mess. But the quiet girl didn't flinch. Instead, she shifted ever so slightly, her hand steadying the edge of the table as if she had seen this move 100 times before. A few kids at the nearby tables noticed the calm precision in her movements, though they couldn't quite understand it. To them, it almost looked like she was ready, not scared, not nervous, but prepared. That alone was unsettling. The bully, of course, mistook her silence for weakness. He leaned in, his voice dripping with mockery, asking if she was scared. His friends laughed, urging him on, making the moment bigger than it really was. What none of them realized was that the real conflict wasn't about spilled food at all. It was about power, control, and the dangerous assumption that quietness means helplessness. Some of the students who had been picked on by the bully before were watching closely. They were torn between hoping she would stand up to him and fearing what would happen if she did. For them, it wasn't just her fight. It was a moment that could change the way the entire cafeteria saw things. If she stayed silent and let him win, the cycle would continue. But if she pushed back, everything could shift. Meanwhile, across the room, a teacher kept an eye on the group but hadn't stepped in yet. Maybe she thought it was just another harmless prank. Or maybe she was waiting to see how it played out. The tension grew heavier with every second. The bully's smirk widened, convinced he was untouchable, while the girl's steady gaze told a completely different story. The clash between them was no longer about lunch. It was about something much bigger that no one was ready for. The bully finally tilted his tray, ready to let the food tumble onto her lap. Gasps echoed across the cafeteria as everyone leaned in, expecting the usual humiliation. But at that exact moment, the quiet girl moved with a speed no one saw coming. Her chair scraped back, her hand shot up, and the tray froze in midair as she caught it with surprising force. For the first time, the bully's grin faltered. He hadn't expected resistance, especially not from her. A wave of whispers spread through the crowd. Students who had once been half distracted by their lunches were now fully alert, eyes glued to the unfolding scene. The air felt heavy, like the entire room was holding its breath. This wasn't the script anyone thought they were watching. The bully's friends shouted encouragement, telling him not to back down, but even they exchanged uneasy glances. Something about her composure was unsettling. She wasn't panicked, she wasn't angry, she was simply steady, and that was scarier than any outburst could have been. The girl slowly stood, her hand still gripping the tray, pushing it back toward him with quiet strength. For the first time, he realized she wasn't just reacting, she was in control. His smirk returned, but it was thinner now, forced. He tried to laugh it off, to keep his act alive, but his voice cracked slightly under the pressure of the silence around him. The cafeteria had shifted, and he could feel it. Somewhere deep down, even he sensed that he had walked into something he didn't understand. The crowd leaned forward, the tension snapping tighter with each second. No one knew what she would do next, but everyone knew one thing. This wasn't going to end the way he had planned. Something bigger was about to break loose. Just when the bully thought he could laugh it off and push his way back into control, the unexpected happened. One of his own friends, someone who had always stood behind him, spoke up. The voice cut through the tense silence, sharp and direct. Maybe you should leave her alone. The cafeteria went even quieter. No one ever challenged him, not even the kids in his own circle. The bully turned sharply, his face twisting with disbelief. Betrayal wasn't part of his plan. The crowd murmured, shocked at the sudden shift. This wasn't just about the quiet girl anymore. Now the bully's image, the reputation he had built on fear and bravado, was slipping in front of everyone. And for someone who thrived on dominance, that was far worse than losing a tray of food. His pride was at stake, and the pressure to save face only fueled his anger. The quiet girl, still calm and steady, didn't move. She simply watched, her eyes never leaving him. It was as if she knew the battle he was fighting wasn't only with her, it was with his own crumbling control. That stillness made him look smaller with every passing second. The whispers around the room grew louder, and now students were daring to ask one another if the bully had finally met his match. But then, another twist unfolded. The teacher who had been watching from across the room finally stood and began making her way through the crowd. All eyes shifted, tension snapping in two directions. Would she stop the bully? Would she side with him, brushing it off as a harmless prank? The uncertainty only raised the stakes. Between the quiet girl's unwavering stance, the bully's shaken pride, and the teacher closing in, the room was a powder keg waiting for a spark. Something had to give, and everyone knew the breaking point was seconds away. The teacher's footsteps echoed through the cafeteria, and everyone braced for the moment she would intervene. The bully puffed up his chest again, trying to reclaim his usual confidence before she arrived. But the quiet girl didn't give him the chance. With one controlled movement, she set the tray firmly back into his hands, her eyes locked on his. The bully wobbled, caught off guard, and for the first time in front of everyone, he looked clumsy instead of powerful. The crowd erupted in gasps and murmurs, their loyalties shifting in real time. The teacher finally reached the table, demanding to know what was going on. The bully opened his mouth, ready to spin the story in his favor, but before he could speak, his so-called friend, the one who had dared to challenge him, stepped forward. In front of the entire room, He explained exactly what had happened, exposing the bully's plan. The silence that followed was heavier than before. The bully wasn't just facing a strong opponent in the quiet girl. He was also losing the trust of the group he had always depended on. The teacher didn't need convincing. She ordered him to clean up the mess and follow her out, his face burning as the crowd watched. For someone who had always lived off attention, this was the worst punishment of all, being seen as weak, caught, and powerless. The cafeteria buzzed, everyone still trying to process what they had just witnessed. But the final twist came after the noise died down. As the girl quietly returned to her seat, one of the younger students she barely knew approached her and whispered, "How did you know what he was going to do?" She looked at him for a moment, then gave a small, knowing smile. "Because I've seen it before," she said softly. No one asked her what she meant, but those words lingered, hinting that her story went much deeper than anyone realized. The cafeteria slowly returned to its usual noise, but the atmosphere wasn't the same. The students who had once laughed at the bully's jokes now kept their distance, whispering instead about how quickly things had changed. The quiet girl sat back down, unbothered, opening her book as if nothing had happened. Yet everyone around her saw her differently now. She wasn't just the quiet girl in the corner anymore. She was the one who stood her ground when no one else dared. The bully didn't return that day, and his absence spoke louder than any words. Without him at the center, the cafeteria felt calmer, as though a heavy weight had finally lifted. His friends scattered, unsure of where they stood, and a few even approached the quiet girl later to thank her, though she only nodded politely. For the kids who had been targets of his pranks before, her actions meant more than just a single victory. It was proof that strength doesn't always come from being the loudest. It can come from silence, patience, and the courage to act when it matters most. The teacher, too, seemed to watch her differently, with a mix of curiosity and respect. She didn't ask about the girl's past or how she had managed to keep so composed, but she didn't need to. Everyone understood that what had happened wasn't luck. It was something practiced, something earned. By the end of the day, the story had already spread through the school, and the quiet girl's name carried a new kind of weight. She hadn't fought for recognition, yet she had gained it anyway. And for those who watched it all unfold, the lesson was clear. Never mistake quiet for weakness, because sometimes the ones you overlook are the strongest of all.